I think it all started that night at my company's New Year's Eve party. Looking back, I wish I'd paid more attention to Edward's face when he saw me dancing with Caleb, but at the time, I didn't think much of it. It was a party after all. People were laughing, dancing, and letting loose a little. I was just doing the same. Caleb is our new supply manager, tall, fit, and always quick with a joke. He has this natural ease about him, the kind that makes you feel seen, and I'll admit, I like the attention. Not in a let me risk my marriage kind of way, but it felt nice to be noticed. I hadn't thought much of it until I saw Edward watching us from the bar, eyes narrowed, his jaw set in that firm, unreadable way he gets sometimes. When I finally walked over to him, I smiled, ready to brush it off. Sorry, love. I got caught up talking and dancing with everyone. His eyes flicked toward Caleb. Everyone? Or just him? He asked, his voice calm but sharp enough to make me pause. That's just Caleb, I replied, waving it off. We were having fun. No big deal. Edward leaned in a little, his eyes locked on mine. You like him, don't you? He said, not as a question but as a fact. That stopped me cold. I opened my mouth to deny it, but for some reason I didn't. Maybe a little, I admitted, still half smiling, trying to keep it light. But it's nothing serious. I like the attention, sure, but come on, Edward. He's just a work colleague. To my surprise, he didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice or storm out. He just nodded like he'd solved a puzzle. The rest of the night, I stayed by Edward's side, trying to make up for it. I even leaned into him more than usual, touching his arm, kissing his cheek. It worked, too. We had one of the best nights together when we got home, but the next morning he asked me something that still haunts me. Was it him? He said quietly while we lay in bed. What? I turned to face him. Last night? Was it him that got you like that? I hesitated. I could have lied, but something about the way he asked made me tell the truth. Maybe a little, I admitted, but mostly it was you. He didn't seem upset, just thoughtful, too thoughtful. It should have ended there. It should have just been a moment, a blip in the story of our marriage. But that conversation, that tiny, innocent admission, was the first domino, the one that would send everything else tumbling down. I didn't plan for things to go as far as they did. At first, it was just harmless fun, or at least that's what I told myself. Caleb's flirting at work was playful, lighthearted. He'd make comments like, looking sharp today, boss, or don't wear that color too often. You're making the rest of us look bad. Innocent stuff. I laughed it off, never thinking twice about it. But somewhere along the way, the line between playful and personal started to blur. It wasn't one big moment. It was a series of little ones. The way he'd hold eye contact just a second too long, the way he'd brush his hand against mine when handing me a file, the way he'd ask questions that felt specific. What's your favorite kind of wine? Or, do you and your husband ever get time to yourselves? It wasn't until he invited me out for drinks after work that I realized we crossed into dangerous territory. Just one drink, he said, flashing that easy smile. We're both adults, right? I declined, of course. Told him I had dinner plans with Edward, which I did. But as I drove home, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not about the drink, but about why I even considered it. At dinner that night, Edward could tell something was on my mind. He didn't press me, just glanced at me now, and then like he was waiting for me to say it. I didn't, but the seed was planted. A week later, Caleb asked me again. This time, I didn't have an excuse. No dinner plans, no errands to run. I stood there searching for a reason to say no, and that's when I realized I didn't want to. I wanted to feel the thrill, the attention. I wanted to feel like more than a wife, a mother, a woman who runs a store and does yoga on Tuesdays. I wanted to feel desired. I still didn't go, but I thought about it, and that was enough to change everything. Later that week, I told Edward not everything, but enough. We'd started having these open conversations ever since the party. It felt like we were letting each other see behind the curtain a little more, sharing fantasies we'd never talked about before. He'd been the one to bring it up, saying, "If you ever want to try something new, I'm open to it. We've got nothing to lose, right?" I took that as permission, so I tested the waters. "Remember what you said about trying something new?" I asked him one night. "What if we actually did?" His eyes flicked toward me, his face calm but alert. "What do you mean?" "I don't know." I shrugged, playing it off like it was no big deal. Like maybe exploring some of the things we've talked about, just being open to it. Edward didn't fight me on it when I told him about the idea. I expected a blowout, some big dramatic argument, but all he did was look at me for a long, heavy moment before saying, "Do what you need to do." No yelling, no accusations, nothing, just those 6 words. They stayed with me the whole week leading up to that weekend. I kept replaying them, wondering if it was his version of permission or if it was his way of letting me hang myself. Friday morning, I packed my bag. I didn't overthink it, just grabbed a few dresses, some heels, and the new lingerie I'd ordered online, the silky black set with the lace trim. I wasn't sure I'd even wear it, but I packed it anyway, just in case. "See you Sunday," I told Edward as I zipped my bag shut. He was sitting at the kitchen table with his coffee, scrolling through his phone like it was any other morning. "Be safe," he said without looking up. That should have made me pause. It didn't. The drive to the hotel with Caleb was filled with small talk and music. He kept glancing at me, that sly grin on his face, like he knew he was winning. I laughed too much, smiled too easily. Part of me felt like a teenager sneaking out to meet a boy after curfew. It was exciting, and I won't lie, I liked it. I liked feeling unpredictable for once. The hotel was beautiful, all sleek glass windows and soft golden lights. Caleb checked us in while I stood there, clutching my overnight bag, like I wasn't sure I belonged. When we got to the room, he gave me this look, like he'd been waiting for this moment for weeks. "Nice view," I said, walking toward the window. The city lights stretched out below us, flickering like stars. I felt him come up behind me, his hands resting lightly on my waist. I didn't move away. "Better view right here," he murmured, and I laughed even though I knew it wasn't funny. I stayed at the window a little longer than necessary, pretending to admire the skyline. I wasn't stalling, at least that's what I told myself. But something about the quiet hum of the city below reminded me of home. Edward would be watching TV right now, feet up on the couch, maybe texting Sophia or Ethan to check in on them. The thought of him like that made my chest tighten, but I pushed it away. I excused myself to the bathroom to freshen up. Really, I just needed a second to breathe. I unzipped my dress slowly, watching myself in the mirror. The black lingerie looked just as good as it had in the pictures. I stared at myself for a long time, longer than I should have, wondering who I'd become. My phone buzzed on the counter. A message from Edward. "Enjoy your night." 3 words, that's all. Not "I love you" or "I miss you." Just those 3 words, flat and distant. My heart clenched, and for a second, I considered calling him, telling him I changed my mind. But I didn't. I stepped out of the bathroom and smiled like everything was fine. Caleb was already on the bed, propped up against the pillows, arms behind his head like he owned the place. "Took you long enough," he said, grinning. I forced a laugh. "Good things take time," I replied, but in the back of my mind, I was thinking about Edward, wondering if he was thinking about me, wondering if I just crossed a line I could never uncross. I knew something was wrong the moment I walked into the house. It wasn't the obvious wrong, like broken glass or an open door. No, it was the kind of wrong you feel before you see it. The house was too still, too quiet. The air didn't smell like home. You know how every house has its own familiar scent? Ours always smelled like fresh coffee and clean laundry, but that day, it smelled like nothing. My heart started racing as I glanced around. I set my overnight bag by the door, thinking maybe Edward had gone out to run errands, but then I saw it. The for sale sign planted in our front yard. My stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. I walked outside just to make sure my eyes weren't playing tricks on me. Nope, it was real. Big, red letters staring back at me like a punch to the gut. I stumbled back inside, my breathing shallow, my hands shaking. "Edward," I called, my voice echoing in the emptiness. No answer. I went room to room, looking for him, calling his name like a fool. His closet was empty. His drawers were empty. His side of the bed bare. That's when I saw it. The envelope on the kitchen table. No note, no explanation, just a stack of divorce papers with his signature at the bottom. My name was printed neatly at the top like it had been waiting for me. My vision blurred, and I had to steady myself on the counter. "No, no, no," I whispered, pacing in circles. This couldn't be happening. Not like this, not so final. I grabbed my phone, my fingers fumbling as I scrolled for his name. I hit call and pressed the phone to my ear, my heart hammering so hard I could barely hear the ringing. He didn't answer. I called again, straight to voicemail. "Edward, please," I gasped, my voice cracking under the weight of my panic. "Please, just call me back. We can talk about this. We can fix it. I'll come to you. Just tell me where you are. Don't do this, please." I stood there in the kitchen, phone clutched to my chest, eyes locked on the divorce papers like they might disappear if I blinked hard enough. But they didn't. They were as real as the ache in my chest. Minutes passed, then my phone buzzed. A message. I snatched it up like it was a lifeline. "Your choices, your consequences." 4 words. Cold, final. My legs buckled, and I sank onto the kitchen floor, pulling my knees to my chest like a child. I stared at the message, rereading it over and over until the words didn't feel like words anymore. I typed back, my fingers moving on autopilot. "I'm sorry, Edward. I love you. Please don't do this. I'll come home for good. No more games, no more pretend. I choose you. Just please, please answer me." Nothing. No, just to show he was typing, no reply, just the silence of an empty house. 2 hours later, I tried again. "Please, Edward, I'm begging you. Don't do this. We can fix it. We always fix it." This time he replied, but his words cut deeper than the papers on the table. "It's already done. You made your bed, Amelia. Lay in it." I screamed then. I'm not proud of it, but I did, a raw, broken sound that echoed off the kitchen walls. I pressed my hands to my face, trying to muffle it, but it didn't stop. I cried harder than I had in years. Not the quiet, pretty kind of crying you see in movies. No, this was ugly, gasping for air, kind of crying. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I wondered if the neighbors could hear me, but I didn't care. Let them hear. Let them know that Amelia, the woman with the perfect life, had finally hit rock bottom. I don't know how long I sat on that kitchen floor, knees pulled to my chest, staring at those divorce papers. My eyes kept tracing his name at the bottom. Edward Collins, written so neatly, like he'd had all the time in the world to make it perfect. I don't know why, but that part hurt the most. The precision of it. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't angry. It was deliberate, final. I kept telling myself this was temporary, a mistake. He was upset, sure, but once he calmed down, we'd talk. We'd work it out. We always did. So I wiped my face, stood up and grabbed my phone. No more texts, no more voicemails. I called him, straight to voicemail. I called again, same thing. 2 days passed like that. 2 days of calling, texting, pacing from room to room, checking the driveway like he'd magically reappear. He didn't. On the third day, I woke up to a package on the doorstep. No note, no explanation. I brought it inside, heart pounding, and ripped it open like a madwoman. Inside, I found a small black box. I knew what it was before I even opened it. His wedding ring. I stood there clutching it like it was a grenade that might explode at any moment. My vision blurred with tears so fast I barely had time to blink them away. I sat on the edge of the couch, holding the ring in my palm, feeling the weight of it. Funny how something so small can feel so heavy. For hours, I didn't move. I just stared at it, my mind replaying every argument, every conversation, every tiny moment where I could have done things differently, every glance I'd given Caleb, every harmless text, every lie of omission. I should have known this was coming. The signs were all there. Edward wasn't the type to shout, argue, or slam doors. He didn't do drama. When he left, quiet, permanent. But I still held on to hope. People fight. People make mistakes. Marriages survive worse than this, right? That night, I stayed up watching old home videos. One from Sophia's 5th birthday party, another from Ethan's high school graduation. Edward's voice filled the living room, his steady laugh echoing from the TV speakers. I hugged a pillow to my chest and cried, letting the sound of his voice fill the silence. But even then, I wasn't ready to give up. I sent him one last message. I love you, Edward. I always have. I always will. Please, please come home. No response. The next morning, I woke up to a postcard in the mail. Not a letter, not a call, a postcard. It was from the Caribbean. Bright turquoise water, white sand, palm trees swaying in the sun. On the back, written in his familiar, steady handwriting, was one short message. Living my dream now. You live yours. There was a picture too. Edward grinning like he didn't have a care in the world. Beside him was a woman I'd never seen before, younger, prettier. Her smile was wide, and her hand rested lightly on his chest like she belonged there. My hand shook so badly, I nearly dropped the postcard. I sat at the kitchen table staring at it, willing it to catch fire in my hands. It didn't. It stayed right there, as solid and real as everything else I tried to ignore. I stared at his smile, the one that used to belong to me. For the first time in weeks, I stopped hoping. For the first time, I realized that he wasn't coming back. I didn't think Edward had it in him to be cruel. Quiet, yes. Calculated sometimes. But cruel? Never. At least, not until now. The real blow came 2 weeks later. I was sitting in the living room, scrolling mindlessly on my phone, when it buzzed with a new message. It was from Sophia. Mom, what is this? Attached were screenshots. At first, I didn't understand. Then I saw it. My messages to Caleb. The ones I thought were private, the ones I thought only 2 people in the world had seen. There they were on my daughter's phone, clear as day. My chest tightened as I scrolled. My words to Caleb laid bare for her to read. Can't wait for the weekend. I'll pack something special. I'll tell Edward it's for us, not you. My breath caught in my throat. My hands shook so badly, I dropped the phone. No. This couldn't be happening. I snatched it up and scrolled back to the top, praying it was some kind of mistake, some kind of glitch. But it wasn't. It got worse. I received a call from my sister, Evelyn. I knew just from the tone of her breath on the other end that she'd seen it too. Amelia, she said slowly, like I was a child she didn't want to scold too harshly. Is there something you need to tell me? I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. My voice had vanished. Look, I'm not here to judge, she continued, a lie if I'd ever heard one. But you should know that everyone's talking about it. It's been forwarded to, well, pretty much everyone. Her words were a blur after that. I hung up. My mind was spinning. I tried calling Edward, but of course, straight to voicemail. I texted him. What have you done? No reply. Minutes later, another call. My mother. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I knew exactly why she was calling. My stomach churned. I ran to the bathroom, clutching the sink as nausea rolled through me. He did it on purpose. He wanted this. He wanted me humiliated. The texts didn't stop. More screenshots from friends, from coworkers, even from people I hadn't spoken to in years. They all had the same energy: shock, confusion, disbelief. One message from a coworker read, "Wow, Amelia, never expected this from you." My heart shattered into pieces. I'd spent my entire life building my reputation as a dependable, responsible woman, the one people could trust, the wife who had it all. And in a single day, it was gone. But Edward wasn't done. He sent the messages to Caleb's wife. I know this because she called me. No, she didn't call, she screamed. You ruined my family. You selfish, disgusting. I hung up before she could finish. I didn't have the strength to hear it. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, my face buried in my hands. My phone buzzed beside me, but I didn't check it. I knew it was more fallout, more people asking, why Amelia? Or how could you? I glanced up at the wall. Our family photo. Me, Edward, Sophia, and Ethan, all of us smiling like everything was perfect. I wanted to rip it down, smash the glass, burn it. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there, feeling the weight of everything crashing down around me. I tried to reach Sophia and Ethan, but neither of them answered my calls. I texted them. No response. That stung more than anything. I knew they'd seen the screenshots. Edward made sure of it. But still, I thought they'll understand. They'll listen. They're my kids. They'll give me a chance to explain. They didn't. When I finally got through to Sophia, she was cold, distant. I could hear it in her tone before she even said a word. "Hi, baby," I said, trying to sound normal, like everything wasn't crumbling around me. "Don't call me that," she snapped. Her voice was sharp, but I could hear the hurt underneath. "I don't know who you are anymore, Mom." Those words knocked the wind out of me. I sat there blinking as if I hadn't heard her correctly. "Sophia, I'm still me," I said, my voice cracking. "I made a mistake, yes, but I'm still your mother." She let out a bitter laugh. "A mistake? Is that what you call it? Dad's out there somewhere, probably broken, and you're here talking about mistakes." She didn't yell. She didn't scream, but somehow her quiet anger hurt more. I wanted to argue. I wanted to explain that it wasn't like that I never meant to hurt Edward, that I was just what? Curious? Lonely? Selfish? There was no good answer, no defense. "I'm sorry, Sophia," I whispered, barely able to get the words out. "I'm so sorry." "You should be," she said. "Don't expect Dad to ever come back." And then she hung up. I sat there for a long time. The phone still pressed to my ear, even though the line had gone dead. I didn't cry, not at first. I think I was too stunned for tears, too numb. But the tears came later. They always do. I tried to focus on work, but the stares from my employees were unbearable. I could feel them watching me, whispering the moment I stepped out of earshot. They thought they were being subtle. They weren't. "Is that her?" I overheard one of the newer girls whisper. "The one from the messages?" "Yep," someone replied. I heard her husband left her, packed up everything and walked out. I clenched my fists at my sides, forcing myself not to react. I was their boss. I still had authority. I still had my dignity, at least that's what I told myself. Later that day, one of my oldest employees, Cheryl, a woman I'd hired 12 years ago, asked to speak to me privately. She closed the door to my office and gave me a look I'd never seen on her face before. Pity. "Amelia, I just wanted to say, if you need to take some time off, I can cover for you," she said, her voice soft and too kind. "I know things are rough right now." I hated that. I hated that tone, that "I'm so sorry for you" tone. I hated that she thought I was broken. But I nodded anyway. "Thanks, Cheryl. I'm fine." I wasn't. Days passed, and I stopped checking my phone altogether. It sat on the kitchen counter, like a ticking time bomb. I couldn't face it. I couldn't face Ethan, who still hadn't called me back. I couldn't face Sophia, who had probably blocked my number by now. And I definitely couldn't face Edward, who hadn't sent a single message since his last one. It's already done. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived in the mail. It was thick, heavy. I knew before I even opened it. The official divorce notice. I sat on the couch, letter in hand, just staring at it. Like if I didn't open it, it wouldn't be real. But I opened it. My hands shook as I unfolded the pages, my eyes scanning the text. Words like dissolution of marriage and irreconcilable differences blurred before me. His signature was at the bottom, bold and certain. No hesitation. I dropped the papers on the table, pressing my hands against my face. My heart felt like it had been ripped out of my chest. I let out a low, guttural sound I didn't even recognize as my own. It wasn't a cry. It wasn't a scream. It was the sound of someone breaking. For the first time in my life, I felt like I'd lost everything. My husband, my children, my home, my dignity. I was just empty. I stayed like that for hours, curled up on the couch. I didn't sleep. I didn't move. I barely breathed. I don't even know how long I stayed like that. I just know that when I finally sat up, my eyes were dry. I wasn't sad anymore. I was angry. Edward had destroyed me, but he didn't just walk away. He made sure to burn it all down before he left. My kids hated me. My family judged me. My name was being whispered in work hallways, in family group chats. And for what? A few moments of adventure that didn't mean anything? I wanted to hate him. I wanted to blame him for being so heartless. But deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't his fault. It was mine. Every text I sent, every lie I told, every excuse I made. This wasn't just the storm that hit me. I built the storm. I stood in it. I let it drown me. And now I was finally feeling the weight of it.